Yeah, so this series of forums are on purpose. And if we look back to the beginning of these and what we still like to call them, the Pellin lift, which is looking at the Pellin tools from the point of view that someone could learn some of it quickly and use it to lift themselves up when they're having a very hard time. And I think the material on purpose is particularly applicable to that in that way, because purpose brings us feelings of accomplishment, and feelings of accomplishment get us through hard times. So, you know, we're talking about 3 levels of purpose. Superficial purpose, where the feelings of accomplishment are strong, but don't necessarily link up over time in a strong way. Underlying purpose, which we looked at last Sunday, which is work, family, careers, raising kids, being married, where the feelings of accomplishment are very strong and do link up over time. So underlying purpose, in a way, is the building blocks of our life in a way that superficial purpose can't be. It doesn't, I guess one way to look at that, it doesn't matter how much pleasure we get out of entertainment if all we have in our life is entertainment. If all we have in our life is superficial purpose, we'll tend to get into trouble because the feelings of accomplishment aren't strong enough. And, you know, just reiterate some of the basics. What we're saying in contribution training, that if we don't get feelings of accomplishment, we're in trouble. And we need to find them, and we need to find a way that they come from an underlying or broad and sustaining purpose. As we looked at last week, underlying purpose can come to an end through sources outside of our control. And in many ways, that's built in. It will come to an end. There's certain parts of underlying purpose that will come to an end. The kids will leave home. One person in a marriage is going to die before another one. Careers come to an end, you know, we're retired from them. And when the underlying purpose comes to an end, the feelings of accomplishment, which were a steady stream, become a trickle. And if there are certain circumstances where if we try to hold on to the underlying purpose, almost beyond its natural life, the feelings of accomplishment will become even less. You know, And that's where in our work we look at broad and sustaining purpose, because broad and sustaining purpose, the feelings of accomplishment can last up to the day we die. In a sense, the purpose in broad and sustaining purpose outlives us. And that's extraordinarily powerful. And we're saying that there's a direct link between feelings of accomplishment and physical and emotional health. So if we're not getting feelings of accomplishment, we are prone to get sick. And we are prone to be almost full force of attraction to hurt. Okay, that's just sort of putting the, hopefully making those basic parts of the material more more available. So sustaining purpose, I guess, is one of the, no question, one of the strongest parts of this work. I think it's one of the most attractive parts of this work. It can be fun, it can be exciting. Yeah, what sustaining purpose is an interest and activity we have, which we commit ourselves to. And that word's really important here. And which we can keep growing in. I feel there's a lot of parallels between finding broad and sustaining purpose and finding a lifelong relationship. There's something sort of similar about, it's very individual. What works for one person is not going to work for somebody else. What is someone's superficial purpose might well be someone else's sustaining purpose. And in a way, sustaining purpose can be anything if it is something that brings us that sense of fulfillment. I think in a lot of sustaining purpose, there's a sense of belonging. And there's a sense that our life has meaning because we are involved in this and we are doing this. And one of the reasons I like to draw the parallel between sustaining purpose and a lifelong relationship, I think there needs to be a commitment. You know, the right relationship can be there for somebody, or the right purpose can be there for someone, but if someone doesn't commit to it, yeah, not going to be there. And there will be rocky patches in it. That's the other way I like to parallel it to lifelong relationship. You know, there'll be times it doesn't seem to work. There'll be times we may want to walk away from it. There'll be times when it goes through a rocky patch. We'll go through a time when we don't feel we're putting much in or getting much back. But if the purpose is right for us, and if we stick in there, it will work. And, you know, one of the characteristics of sustaining purpose, as we see it and define it, and it's almost the flip side of the commitment, you know, we've got some control over it. We've got some control about what we're going to get out of it. There are times when, you know, sustaining purpose is taken away from somebody. You know, someone's got a sustaining purpose in left-wing politics, and you know, they happen to be in their 30s in Germany in 1935. You know, someone could carve out and some did, carve out a sustaining purpose about being in opposition to the regime. But essentially, someone sustaining purpose is sort of ripped out of them. But what you find is that if someone's had a sustaining purpose and it gets taken from them, they will tend to be able to find another one. Okay. I think that, yeah, I guess there's a propensity to be purposeful. And that can go back to memory links. That can go back to who someone's parents were. Because there is a risk often in committing ourselves to a sustaining purpose. There's no doubt about that. You know, it may not work out. We may not be able to do the things that need to be done. We know because sustaining purpose, we do need other people around us who share that. Yeah, I think some of the weaknesses in Pellin is we don't have enough people around. You know, I'm not sort of in my character and skill set to have that that bit of leadership, you know, that draws people and creates movements. That's not who I've been. So there is, I guess I want to touch there on the risk factor of a commitment, of staying in it, and then finding a way to develop in it, finding other people who are also inside this. Yeah, sustaining purpose is that which can give our life meaning. Give our life meaning. We feel we are here for a purpose. And to one of the strokes of strength and originality, I feel, and because this is David's work, is that it's not saying there's one purpose that would be there for everybody. You know, they're saying sustaining purpose is an individual search. And it's an individual search which we maintain as particularly important and significant in societies which are fragmented. I think once sustaining purpose was provided by the outside, you know, God, King, and Country, or the Pledge of Allegiance. But that doesn't work in our societies. In our societies, it doesn't work. Now, how? Because this is one of the places where, you know, our material's got a lot of applications, a lot of really powerful and subtle applications. And that's the bit I am good at. Because one of the powers of authoritarian regimes is that they give people a sense of purpose. And one purpose used to be, you know, God, King, and Country. One purpose was someone's town or village, which their family had lived in for generations and generations. Or religion that was assumed to be there for everyone and valid for everyone. And in many cases, that was accepted. In a way, you could say democratic societies have, you know, provided almost a fragmentation because we're allowed to question, and we would not let the right to question be taken from us. So if you can question God without being burnt at the stake, you take away the way in more traditional societies, the purpose would be in the established religion. The purpose would be in the established class structure for some people. The purpose is in the location where few people left. And, you know, age of movement and communication means that the search for purpose is sort of more urgent, and the understanding of purpose is more important. I mean, a demagogue political demagogue who can get people to follow him, that's an interesting thought. Because I'm just using the male pronoun because I don't think there have been many female demagogues. But, you know, that give people a sense of purpose. Following a demagogue give people a sense of purpose, reason to feel alive, reason to feel that they're in one of the most important moments in history or their time because they're following this leader. And that's the negative, destructive side of sustaining purpose. So as a tool, sustaining purpose is one of our strongest, but one of the ones that can explain how evil happens.
Hey, Peter.
Yeah.
Can you just repeat the part of, or repeat and expound slightly on the negative aspects, what you just said?
Yeah. Well, the way it works, sustaining purpose, if we can find it, gives us a belief in ourselves, gives us a feeling that life has meaning. It can heal, that word in quote marks, and enable us to find that energy almost like nothing else. And it is so powerful that I guess you could say that the pull and the satisfactions of a destructive sustaining purpose just take over someone's life. You know, it's it's colors. I developed some work for foster parents that was about spotting, it was on radicalization. You know, how do foster parents spot when a child might be being radicalized? And that's a pretty big issue in England, because there are a lot of unaccompanied minors, often teenagers, who get here from particularly Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran. How they get here, I always think are stories that around which there should be more interest. Because, to get, if you look at a map, to get from Afghanistan to England and then get into the country, extraordinary. But they end up being in care, okay? And sometimes they end up being in care here because they claim to be younger than they are. They might be 19, they claim to be 15. So, this is a population that could be seriously radicalized. They're Muslim. And they've had a tough life. And answering your question, the radicalization of them in the London radical mosques, radicalizing, that were recruiting them and radicalizing, was giving them a sense of, your life has huge meaning because of this. You are important because of this. You are part of a movement that is more important than anything in the world. And I think you could say the negative side of sustaining purpose is also the negative side of religion. Let's form a Christian crusade and go and slaughter the Muslims. What happened in the Middle Ages, or take the other side of that. Let's invade the countries and kill the Christians because our God is the true God. And you see it in Hitler. You see it in, I'm being a bit delicate about what I'm not going to say, okay? Examples I will not use today. But yeah, you can see it in history, you can see it in Hitler. And if you look, and there's so much brilliant film from that era. I mean, they were good cinematographers. And you can see the sustaining purpose in someone's face. Yeah, Cynthia.
Well, I think as somebody whose spirituality is very important, that there's also the other side of it in terms of oppression. One of the examples in history was, with the Roman Empire, when they wanted to control, they destroyed the Temple of Jerusalem, and about the same time, they destroyed the Druid Center. So one of the ways, and communism was suppressing all religions. One of the ways to get control over a group of people that you can't get control over is to take away their sustaining purpose.
Yes.
And in fact, one of the things they purposely did was they did that to sort of show the people that their gods have abandoned them, and that's what they were trying to do. So they had no more fight left in them.
Yeah, and of course the other, if you and people have purpose in their identity, and if you take away their identity. And of course, one of the things they did with the Jews when they put them in the camps, they gave them numbers, they took away their names. So I guess the way I approach it is sustaining purpose, and our tool of sustaining purpose is a way to understand. It's one way to look at some of the most destructive, hurtful things that are around. Any suicide bomber, almost by definition, has got sustaining purpose. It's just sort of there. There's no particular evidence that they had mental health issues. They had they had sustaining purpose. I mean, sustaining purpose in a way is believing in what you are doing. Okay. And believing in it with passion. And someone's garden could be their sustaining purpose. There's a way for me, but there's a way that my books are a sustaining purpose because they accumulate, and I've got enough space to have as many as I like. And I was thinking the other day, because I don't have a garden, and I used to have a garden. I want to regard my books as my garden. Okay, so I've got to tend them. I have to have them organized. And so a garden can be someone's sustaining purpose. Interest in helping kids with literacy, or running a little league team. Taking on the equality denied women in sport. That's about sustaining purpose. And when you look about denying women the right to vote, here are all these men, all these guys who are getting a huge amount of purpose out of politics. And then what they wanted to say to women was, you wouldn't enjoy this. You wouldn't enjoy it, you don't need it. What can be more important than giving birth? But in the meantime, they're holding on to their purpose and working on it very hard and writing documents that will be remembered and quoted and put into musicals. you know, more than 200 years later. So one of the things that's possible to observe is the way people of privilege try to keep nourishing, sustaining purpose away from people who are less privileged. And that's a paper that's in the manual. I think it's called The Search for Purpose. And as I said recently here, the great universities in the world are bazaars of purpose for the children of the privileged. That's one way to see them.
Nan has her hand up to say something, Peter.
Yeah.
No, I don't anymore. I need to take that down.
Okay. And purpose can be sort of fun. It can be fun to, I guess it's a point of view that you can look at different things. You know, if someone has a long-term take on politics, their sustaining purpose that can mean that they're prepared to listen to the other side, can mean that they're prepared to compromise. Well, it's the phrase, isn't it? The civil rights movement. Keep your eye on the prize. Don't let go. And of course, I think it's interesting to see how sustaining purpose has, this sort of from a historical perspective, and I want to say it with respect, but there's a way that you can see sustaining purposes almost come in and out of generations of Afro-Americans. You know, times that were just too hard. You know, let's accept segregation and do as well as we can for our children within the system because it's just too hard. And I mean, you know, parents saw their kids get on the Freedom Ride buses and some of them didn't come back. And so then almost things settle down in some way or aren't as active. Or hopelessness creeps in. I think that happened after Dr. King was killed. And then it comes back, okay? And then it comes back as a sustaining purpose that is enormously demonstrative of all the things we say sustaining purpose can do. You know, it can bring in feelings of accomplishment. It can heal like nothing else. It can energize people. It can give them a sense of their own capability, give people an opportunity to fulfill all their talents. And that side of it you can see on the negative side in Nazi Germany, when all these mediocre people, one could say, you know, I guess became very efficient and confident and effective and provided leadership and all of that. It was just towards an end that was evil, unacceptable, now regarded as unacceptable. And the phrase, isn't it? The phrase for the South after the Civil War and the statues that are coming down was the lost cause. You know, and I think there were remnants of a lost cause. Could not be vocalized, but the remnants of lost cause in Germany after their defeat. But the lost cause was way out in the open. Well, it's all those. From a point of view of art, all those statues that are coming down were very, very competent. Those people knew how to make equestrian bronze statues. And I guess the lost cause would be a sustaining purpose, but I think being taken away from a lot of people. Was the Nazism was a sustaining purpose that was totally taken away from people when Germany was defeated. Anyway, that sort of historical example, but to bring it down a bit more to the practical, it's something we can be passionate about, enjoy doing, and get involved and feel the contribution we're making inside our purpose. And it provides an enormous strength in people's lives. That I have no doubt. And often you can see people who will resist it. They don't want to go there. It's often wanting an easy life, or wanting or afraid to take risks, afraid to take themselves seriously. I guess people who, I don't know, want to live a modest life. Because and they often lose out. One of the things I haven't used this part of the material quite some time, but underlying purpose and the dynamics of underlying purpose is almost one of the only places I know where someone does all the right things and then they get screwed, okay? Someone's doing all the right things, they're creating the family, they're doing well in their career, they bring up the kids well, and then all of a sudden that stuff shut off. And they get low on the pendulum, so they're put on medication. And what we're saying with this work, and David's word, it's active, David's word activator. This is active, this is being active in our own lives. And you can see some people who go in that direction, some people who don't. And as I've said before, I want to repeat fairly frequently, this was the start of all the Pellin work. David was working in an old age home, as they're called then, as a physiotherapist. And he came up with the idea that people stopped getting feelings of accomplishment because they didn't have purpose and then they had strokes. Okay. That was his first observation, and everything developed from that. So one of the things that sustaining purpose does is keeps us going, keeps us alive, keeps us developing. And it's something we can search for. I guess maybe someone should do a website. You know, there are websites about finding, there will be websites using different language than mine. But, you know, there are dating websites for finding a relationship. So there could be websites for finding a purpose, okay? They could be. And my point of view is, I'm an optimist, hard one, but an optimist. There's a sustaining purpose out there for everybody. I really believe that. And it can be incredibly healing. And of course, some of, I guess, the sustaining purposes that we're attracted to are those which have an element of contribution from hurt in them. Okay. And you know, you see the combination of those two things all over the place. It's almost a particular idea to have, a particular point of view to have. You know, the woman who, you know, lost her son to gun violence and is now a congresswoman. You know, the kids who went through the shooting in the school and set up a movement. You know, someone loses a daughter to, you know, a traffic accident that involved drinking and sets up an organization to do something about it. And of course, Black Lives Matter. George Floyd, straight contribution from her sustaining purpose. Bring it down to an individual level, then what's mine? Okay. And yeah, mine is the work and David material and writing it and now trying to type it up, get it out there. The work I do here. But someone's sustaining purpose could be someone's sustaining purpose is the New York Yankees. Or the, Ohio State football team. Certainly some people's sustaining purpose is the U of M football team. That will only work for a few people, okay? But that's where we're saying, on sort of openness about them, that will work for somebody. You know, what they do with their support for their football team, and you know, that they get involved in groups of people and study and Chase. Did you want to come in? You're muted, Cease.
So noisy here. Let me walk up a little ways. Well, what you were making me, what I was bringing to mind as I was listening was the work I did with veterans who were fighting in Afghanistan and Iraq, and what they're calling moral entry after being involved in that, realizing having a lot of regrets about so they had a purpose going in, but then that purpose became very murky as they were in combat, and then it came even murkier and very just devastating for a lot of them. And they had a lot of regrets about what they had been involved in, and a lot of regrets about killing people. And so one of the recommended, there's a lot of ways to work with people with that, but a big one is finding a purpose now that you're out of the service, or maybe still in the service in some way. And so a lot of them have been very active in developing projects that promote activities for youth, or just a lot of different positive activities. And I think that's been one of the main ways that they're kind of rehabbing themselves and finding new purpose. But it's really, like we're talking about people in World War II. I don't think we have much information about what their regrets might have been, but we do know that these young men were very devastated by what they ended up doing, and especially when they were involved, innocent people being killed, and realizing the devastation that they had caused. And so it goes, somehow that has to be healed, as well as then looking at a new purpose for them. So they kind of go hand in hand. And I think part of it is giving up the previous purpose can be really, I think you were implying this, can be really difficult for people, like in a marriage or a certain kind of vocation, to really see, oh, I spent my whole life as I'm just going to use this randomly, selling shoes or something. And that can be a lot of regrets for them. So that has to be addressed somehow to help them then be able to move on to what's something that's going to really be great for them now. Would you agree with what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Peter? Uh-huh.
yeah. I would think that the that high rate of suicide in vets is those that could not find a nourishing purpose out of it all. And the other thing, and which I was pausing for a minute. Yeah, I think what I'd like to do next Sunday is purpose and guilt, because David didn't develop, and the way I'm pausing is that this is part of his work. I guess I feel I've not developed as much as I should have, But he said that guilt is the most destructive hurt we have. And as against some therapeutic approaches, he felt guilt was a real thing. And at times, the only way to overcome guilt is with purpose. And we've, you know, from Alcoholics Anonymous to vets who work with vets, you know, we can see the enormous power of contribution from hurt combined with purpose. And I guess I'd like to parallel that with my work on hope. I'm saying sources of hope are purpose, contribution from hurt, and true rest. And I imagine those are issues for the vets you work with, Cease, that were just very present.
They were painful for them to remember.
Yeah.
They were, one guy was down on the floor crawling and crying. So, I mean, it was so dreadful for him to think about what had happened. And you're right, that guilt could, really makes some people not even want to try again with anything.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. And I think that's probably true with a lot of different people who have spent maybe in some activity not right for them or wasn't right for anybody, and to have this horrible regrets and maybe guilt. And that's a heavy load to carry.
Yeah. Do you want to come in at all, Elizabeth? Maybe she's not there at the moment.
I'm here. I just don't have anything to add at the moment. Sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's fine. So I think we need to be determined, sort of methodologically, to have the large examples on the small. Okay, you know, someone who's sustaining purposes their garden, someone whose sustaining purposes their home and fixing it up, and sort of improving it. That can be a sustaining purpose. Not for everyone, but for some people.
My father had a sustaining purpose of his jazz.
Yes,
Which,
absolutely.
it isn't something that would necessarily strike you as fodder for sustaining purpose, but he, for those of you who don't know about it, he loved jazz, and he had collections that went right through the different methods. You know, he started out with 78s and LPs, and then cassettes, and then CDs. I don't think he went past CDs. And he had a huge collection. He had enough jazz to listen non-stop 24 hours a day for about 2 years or something. And he went off to a jazz club once a week, you know, right till near the end of his life.
Yeah, no.
And like you were saying about your books, organized everything, and
yeah,
where, and yeah. I think mentioning purpose and guilt, I think it's hard not to hear it as a hierarchy. And when you feel, you know, I feel out of touch with purpose and sustaining purpose because of going through a hard patch and things not working out for me around what I trained in. So I think that brings some guilt in when you've grown up with the idea of purpose. It brings guilt up to feel that you don't know where you're situated in relation to your purpose. So yeah, and it can feel like well, it ought to have a sustaining purpose. And it can feel hierarchical, even though it's not how we teach it. I don't know if you have anything to say about that.
Yeah, I guess what I would have to say about it, because as I've said recently, making purpose as a theme that, almost run through all of. Yeah, thank you for that, Mary. It really helps. I would have a temptation to go to the hierarchical stage, okay? And that would mean that it'd be a good thing if everyone had a significant sustaining purpose, okay? And I hadn't realized how much I was sort of being pulled in that direction a bit and didn't want to. And I know now why I don't want to, because I don't want to go into that place. Sustaining purpose is great for some people. Maybe some people don't need it. I still have amongst my books, I still have this sort of collection of old National Geographics. Yes, Cynthia.
I'm glad Mary spoke about that, because I've been having a lot of, as an astrologer, and that's actually one of the big questions people want to know, other than, is this person am I going to get married? Am I going to get rich? What's my goal? What's my vocation? What's my purpose? And there's a lot of things with vocation, and, and I've been part of, I do have a very strong spirituality. It's changed forms, but it's, the sense I feel is the same regardless of the form of religion it's been. But I think that one of the things I'm having some trouble is it seems like this discussion has taken away a lot of the mystery behind, and I don't know that sustaining purpose is the same as calling. I thought it was, but calling is something that there is a mystery, and there are some things you don't know, and it is not necessarily something grandiose. When my spouse was a pastor and she was training to be a pastor, she was working in different fields, and there was somebody who says, my calling is I've been given the gift that I don't cry when I'm chopping onions. So I use that gift in chopping onions for soup kitchens. And that was her. I mean, that was what she felt her calling is because God gave this to me. I mean, I know you're not comfortable with that, but gave me this ability. This is what I should use it for, so that so I'm doing it so somebody else doesn't have to cry when they're chopping onions for the soup kitchen. And you don't know. I mean, there's also a big role of unconscious contribution. You don't there's a certain level where you can know what you're doing and your purpose is, and that your life has meaning. But there's also some people, and you can see it in charts, and you can see it in there, for whom, I mean, yes, I think that there's a role for everybody in life. I mean, I do believe that.
Yes.
I believe in there's a harmony, but I don't know, and you can be out of that, and you can be in it, but you don't always know what your purpose is. You could think and be resentful of spending all your time raising a child, and that child may end up like saving the world.
Yeah.
You don't know.
Yeah.
There's a lot that you can know, but I think that I guess I'm feeling comfortable because it's not sounding like there's room for the mystery of things, that, and without necessarily speaking to any specific religion, but there's a mystery with a sustaining purpose. And you may think you're spending your whole life on underlying purpose, but who knows what you're doing? Who knows with the casual word you say to somebody on the street? I mean, there's so much that you can't know. And I think that one of the things we're talking about, guilt feeling, a lot of people feel like and I would say, sorry, I'm generalizing with a generation, but particularly in baby boomers, I think there's a certain amount of sense that if their purpose is not some big grandiose thing that's saving the world or, you know, doing this, their life doesn't have meaning. And you don't know that. You know,
Yeah.
and let's just say you don't even know if you think your big
Yeah.
grandiose thing, you might be doing a big grandiose thing for the wrong side. You know, I mean, there's there's just, yeah, I think that's why I've been a little uncomfortable, because it's like there's a mystery behind it that I don't know, that's kind of, sorry, I'm you know, that may be, you know, and there's a certain sense, I think, with calling, and I don't know if it's a sustaining purpose is the same, because you're talking about very different, where you can't not do it. I mean, I ran from being, there was a time I tried not to be an astrologer because my spouse was a Christian pastor, and they were, you know, kind of goofy about it, you know, and it was very Protestant, and you know, and I also thought, you know, that so there was a certain time, but there's a certain part, if it's taken away from you, it's you and not everybody has something like that, where you just you can't not do it, and if you don't do it, it starts destroying your life. It's sort of it's something beyond you that even if you know I don't know, it's I don't know how to explain, but there's something, and not everybody has it, and thank goodness not everybody has it, because a lot of people would be miserable. You know, like a painter who can't not paint, you know, there's just something that won't, I don't know how to and I don't know if it's the same thing, but it's just I don't know, I'm going off into but anyways, I'll stop here because I don't know.
No,
My
I'm personally, I'm grateful for that. And what you said, Mary, earlier, because, you know, on the one hand, and I guess that's why I am comfortable with the concept of tools. I guess I'd even say a bit more than that. I guess I'm proud of it, because I think with that approach, we can handle the mystery, and we can handle, you know, on the one hand, you know, we're teaching these tools forcefully, and they can be useful, and, you know, it'd be great if, you know, they're available to vets or teenage kids who are struggling at school. And you know, and all the motivation and energy behind that. But, you know, there's nothing in our work. If someone just wants to accept the life they have, whatever it is, you know, perhaps there's something absolutely wonderful in that. You know, where, you know, with all our brilliance, and, you know, you can go onto Google and find out anything. You know, we're still sort of pretty unformed. Greek writer Kazantzakis said, you know, we're adolescents. You know, we're brilliant and energetic, but dumb and destructive at the same time. And I guess it's not losing sight of that. Well, not having the hierarchy. So, no, it's a powerful tool. But I guess there's something about tools, isn't it? It's a powerful tool if someone wants to pick it up. If someone doesn't want to pick it up, that's fine. You know, yeah, there's not one way to live a life. And as you know, I love David's thing that any of us only have a small part of the truth. So, you know, we can explore purpose and some of these other things that we explore. But we're not we're not saying we got it all at all. Now, I've always felt, I don't know what you feel about this, Mary, or others here, but I've always felt with Alcoholics Anonymous, my experience of it, which is completely as an outsider, you know, they've got an absolute sort of insistence. They have the answer, they have the model. It's a disease. And yet, I've always felt at the same time, there's a tolerance, and I'm sure this is not everywhere, but somehow or other, even within all that insistence, I think it's an unconscious contribution tolerance. You know, maybe this is not the way for everyone, or maybe people will come in and out of meetings. Am I making any sense in that, Mary?
Yeah, if you if you buy into the 12-step programs, then follow them in the way, well, they say take what you like and leave the rest.
Yeah.
But do the bits that work for you. Yeah, I don't do it in the way that experience has showed works, but with that tolerance of different things are going to work for different people.
Take what works for you and leave the rest.
Take what you like and leave the rest.
Yeah. Yeah, it's that bit that I've always sort of felt on some level. I guess it's sort of based in the caring life force, because it's not competitive. I don't have to beat you, okay? My approach doesn't have to be better than yours. And I guess when you've got, you know, what I call hierarchies, which I don't like, there's just a limited amount of room on the top, isn't there? There isn't very much. That's the nature of a hierarchy. Everyone can't be up there. And I guess I want an approach where everyone can be in there. And I guess this is a challenge for me in terms of where my thinking is, to be able to teach it with belief and force, even passion, but at the same time, well, take what you like and leave the rest. I mean, that's, you know, I love that. Are you still there, Nan, or do you have to go? I can't tell.
Nan wrote that she had, she was having an ocular migraine, so she said she'd come back if she could, or something like that.
Okay.
I'm listening, and I think it's starting to pass.
Oh, good.
It's you just have to kind of wait it out.
I think what sustaining purpose can give us is a way to approach a bunch of things. And I think it's really important, and I think you bring it up, Cynthia, that we keep the mystery. We keep the mystery there. And in my, which I haven't got into the rewriting stage yet, and I'm having some trouble getting there. Because to be quite frank, I've never done it, rewriting. But one of the things I developed in my book on decisions, I talk about the sort of DIY side, you know, passive listening to hard feedback from advisors, your pendulum. This will all increase the possibility of you making better decisions, almost money back guaranteed. But that DIY, okay? And then there's the mystery side of it. And, you know, we can make a small, inconsequential decision, and it can end up being the most important thing in our life. And we can struggle with belief and importance about something else, and it wasn't much. Or the, you know, just the phrase unintended consequences to me carries sort of just so much of the human experience. You know, we can't know. And I think one of the other things that happens, yeah, and that's about being loose about the tool, isn't it? It's like, hey, you know, maybe looking at purpose could be really important for you, or maybe not at the moment. Maybe it's just not. Yeah, Cynthia.
Well, and I was thinking about the whole thing with the hierarchy, and you talk about you're comparing sustaining purpose to a lifelong marriage. And I think that that's sort of, again, where, you know, with the sort of sense that everybody has to have this, and it causes a lot of problems. There are some people that probably shouldn't ever marry. I mean, that's not what their vocation is. That's not necessarily, you know, and that there's nothing wrong with that per se. I think is I'm thinking about that, and with sustaining purpose, I don't know. I mean, I think that you know, and I'm still, what you're saying too, that you know, I don't know. I mean, I think that there's something that thinking that you should have something that you don't is, I think, really causes a lot of trouble. And you know, there's some people, and you know, if you've got, and another thing, if you've got a really strong calling towards something, maybe marriage isn't a good idea, because I mean, people will say they're married to their job, and they're married to their you know, that kind of thing, or they're married to their art, or they're married to their you know, and I think that that's something that's yeah, I guess I'm saying the same thing I was saying before, and that Mary said, but I'm just thinking more about that.
Yeah, that struck me recently because, you know, as you know, and I've shared here, I've had 4 divorces and I'm on my own. And I was noticing Jimmy Carter and his wife, and they just celebrated their 75th, I think, wedding anniversary. And there's a part of me that can be sort of envious of that. And there's another part of me that, ooh, there's a whole lot of things I couldn't have done. Okay, there's a whole, from small to large. Do you need any more books? I mean, I can, and not having to answer that question. Have you read the books on that topic that you bought 3 months ago? Okay. No. So, and I just spent a lot of time thinking about that. And I thought, yes, I can really, you know, be envious in many ways of that life. And yet looking back, don't think I wanted it. Okay. So, you know, and at the same time, I mean, I say, you know, sincerely and awkwardly, you know, there's no doubt my divorces felt like the most painful times of my life, the most failed times of my life. I'm not, I'm not sort of romanticizing, but I just think it's true. And that's the bit you're saying about the mystery. Yeah. And I think if we could, I'd sort of like to think of combining the mystery with the truth line. Okay. So maybe there's a way of saying, if the truth line's here and I've just got this little bit of it, well, was all the rest is mysterious. I'm not sure about this. And that's interesting. So people who are into stuff that I'm not into, I don't have to compete with them. And just say, wow, that's a mystery. And I think that also is a way, which is my point of view and my belief, that is, I think, is another way of doubling down on the importance of the caring life force. And I guess that's something I've got so much from working with foster carers. Okay. Because, some of them will say, well, I'm really just in it for the money. Well, I didn't know another way to make a living, but I have parenting skills and I got a spare room. And then on another level, the contributions they're making are not articulated, but in my view, the contribution they're making are just profound. And I'm sure there are examples of, some, I don't know this, I've never been in war. But some vet saying to another vet, just the right thing at the right time. Will save someone's life, might save a life, right? And that's a mystery. We'll sort of never know. One vet saying it to another vet, something that is just the right thing at the right time, might be more significant than, 65 hours of therapy. So, I guess holding on to the mystery would be a good place to stop here. And next week, I would like next week I want to talk about purpose in the pendulum. I guess I want to keep on some of the basic material. Yeah, I want to do that.
I was going to ask you. I was going to say last week you said about purpose in relation to certain tools.
Yeah, I want to start with that.
Yeah,
and down the line, I want to get back to David's material on guilt, but I think I want to combine it with my material on hope. That's a bit of work to do. Okay. Well, thank you for coming. It's light and 7:30 in the evening where I am. Mary?
I'm Mary in Rosarito Beach just after 11:30 in the daytime.
Okay. Elizabeth, up the coast.
I'm Elizabeth, 11:30 in Eugene, Oregon.
Okay. Cynthia?
Cynthia, it is 1:30 in Kankakee, Illinois.
Okay. And Cease?
2:30 Buffalo, New York.
Okay. Okay, so Wednesday we're going to do examples on sustaining purpose. And then I do want to do purpose in relation to the other tools. Yeah. Okay. Bye-bye for now.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.